I 100% believe that God's going to provide us this rental house.
Now, to buy a house and not keep up with this dream, God's going to save us in the last minute here.
We've had more bickering than we've ever had in probably a very, very long time.
That I have with her on agreement, and I will go buy a house without her. Those are threatening words, but I'd rather be a team and make it happen than to sit here and go to war in order to house my children.
The whole Robyn not having a place to live drama. Yeah, that's totally a real storyline, right? I mean, sure, they threw in some fights, a bunch of kids, and a few other wives just to make it extra interesting, because why not? So here's the scene. These two geniuses sit their kids down to dump their drama on them. Why? Who knows? Okay, sure, they needed to tell the kids they'd be moving in 2 months and to start packing. But did they really need to drag them into Kody and Robyn's ridiculous argument about whether they should buy or rent? Kody's acting like a total psychopath, practically sending everyone into a tailspin about being homeless. It's like, calm down, dude. Then, just to add to the chaos, poor Aurora starts twitching and spirals into a full-blown panic attack. Kody's brilliant response. Well, in stressful situations, she has panic attacks. Yeah, no kidding, Kody. You just created the most stressful situation possible. How shocking that it backfired. After all this, Robyn has the audacity to sit there and say, I can't help but feel like I did this to her. Oh, you think? Yes, Robyn, you did do this. You and Kody took a perfectly fine life in Vegas, threw it away for reasons that no one understands, and dragged your kids to Flagstaff, a place that's insanely expensive with zero plans, working out like genius Kody predicted. And now he has to make everything 100 times more dramatic for effect. And Robyn with her whole God will provide excuse. Ugh. Why would God have us buy a house? Robyn, please, I want to shake you. Look, I never bought into the idea that she couldn't find a rental. That was clearly part of the plan to make it look like she had to buy the massive house. Because, heaven forbid, she just admit she wanted it all along. I mean, seriously, God has far more important things to worry about like war, starvation, disease, and natural disasters. But apparently, he needed to focus on making sure Robyn gets her mansion. Priorities, right? And don't even get me started on how Robyn's suddenly all about needing to house her children. But when it comes to Kody's kids, it's like, you're an adult, good luck with that. At the end of the day, I think the whole rental thing was just a staged charade. Kody and Robyn didn't want Robyn to look like the selfish person she really is, so they cooked up this story to make it seem like she had no choice but to buy the mansion. But we all know the truth. They both wanted it, and this was just their way of trying to make her look like the victim. Classic. We've got so much to dive into today, so let's not waste any time. Let's jump straight into it. Hey everyone, what's up? It's Elena here, and welcome back to my channel Reality Nexus X. I couldn't believe it when Robyn dropped the bombshell that she didn't want Truly, Michael T, and Isabel to be the only ones opening presents on their Christmas morning. 3 days late, mind you, and that she saved some gifts for her own kids too. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the logic here. Was she really worried about her kids feeling left out? Or was it more about making sure her kids didn't throw a tantrum if they didn't have something special to unwrap? Either way, it doesn't make sense. I was literally typing a rant about this ridiculous scene when I saw the mountain of gifts piled up under the tree. And let's not forget, Kody used to harp on about the commercialization of Christmas in earlier seasons. Now he's just throwing money around like he's trying to buy his way out of a bankruptcy filing, or before the OG3 get their share back. The hypocrisy is so blatant, I could barely keep it together as I shouted bank account of love. At the TV, I couldn't help but think about how Kody is clearly in the red. My husband summed up the entire episode perfectly. I'm a good guy, but I want to be a bad guy. I'm a dick, and I want to be a dick. Bitch, bitch, whine, whine, Robyn cries, roll credits. I laughed so hard, I almost peed myself. Back to Robyn's decision. She didn't want Isabel, truly, and the others to feel special or be the center of attention. That's her kid's role, apparently. And did anyone else notice that when Christine's daughters were sitting on the floor playing games, Robyn's daughter was perched on the couch, glued to her phone? Then they whine that the other kids don't want a relationship with them, but it's clear they're the ones who couldn't care less. Robyn loses her mind if any of the kids don't treat her like they would their biological mom, but she constantly refers to my kids, like the rest of the 18 don't matter. Make it make sense. Sure, I get it. Maybe hold back 1 or 2 presents so everyone feels like they're opening gifts together. But we all know she wanted to make sure Christine's kids were watching Robyn's kids tear through a mountain of presents while they barely got one. It's like she's trying to rub it in. I bet she knew Ari would throw a tantrum if she didn't get more, so instead of actually parenting her child, she decided to just give in to whatever would keep her quiet. Classic Robyn move. I yelled at the TV so loud when she said that, I startled my poor cat. It's like when parents buy presents for their other kids on a sibling's birthday so no one feels left out. But guess what? Not every moment has to revolve around you, Robyn. Her kids had their Christmas with their dad. Let the other kids have theirs, too. Kody's obsession with having people come to his house is honestly a little bizarre. Garrison invites him over to his first home, you know, the one he actually worked hard to buy, and Kody's response, I have a house. My kids can visit me. Classic Kody move. Pass up an opportunity to maybe patch things up, and instead, snub Garrison. And then, surprise, he blames his bad relationships on Janelle and Christine. The same thing happened with Christmas. Garrison invites him to the rental from the get-go, but Kody pulls the I have a home where the family can gather and have Christmas card. Is this a control thing? Or is it just a sad attempt at proving his power? His entire storyline would just poof disappear if he actually made amends with anyone. He can't maintain his alpha status if he visits his son's house, after all. The man's a walking control freak, trying to maintain his spot as the #1 guy in the family. Honestly, he's like Jax Taylor from Vanderpump Rules in that way. It's all about that home turf advantage. Kody wants to be the king of his castle. If he steps foot in Garrison's house, the power dynamic shifts, and we all know Kody's ego can't handle that. Plus, let's not forget his love for creature comforts. Remember that Big House Kody and Robyn justified buying with Meri and Janelle's money. They said it was for family gatherings. Well, if no one's actually coming to visit, that excuse goes right out the window. And let's be real, Kody's being petty and vindictive. Robyn doesn't even want to be around Garrison and Gabe, thanks to her endless fears and anxieties. It's a mess. Poor Garrison, his dad's a full-blown megalomaniac. It's all about control, no question. Kody's words mean nothing because his actions speak volumes. He can yap about caring for his kids or mending relationships all he wants, but we know he's too selfish to actually put in any effort. He's too busy playing the victim, blaming them for his strained relationships. Oh, and don't forget, this was the house Garrison was saving up for before Janelle refused to kick him and gave out. You just know Kody sees this whole thing as a personal affront. It's like adding salt to the wound. At the end of the day, Kody wants to be surrounded by adoring followers, like Robyn. He likes everything on his terms, and he wouldn't walk into a room where people are upset with him and expect him to take responsibility for his actions. So yeah, don't expect any apologies or admission of guilt. If anything, we can pretty much predict how his relationships with his other kids will play out in the future. Not great. It's hard to understand why Meri took so long to leave Kody, especially in season 15, when it's clear that coronavirus is tearing apart their already fragile family dynamics. It's pretty sad watching Meri, an empty nester with no real support, basically ignored by a husband of 30 years who couldn't care less about her. Kody had checked out long before the whole catfish drama, but after that incident, he seemed to completely lose interest in their relationship. Kody constantly blames Meri for not putting in effort, but let's be real. He does absolutely nothing either and shows zero care for her. It's baffling how long she's stuck around, but it might help to look at things from a different perspective. I'm married to a recovering alcoholic. When he was actively drinking, life was a mess. During that time, I was in a community of spouses who understood the challenges of leaving a partner, and I learned that if you leave before you're truly ready, you'll just end up going back. Thankfully, my husband got sober before I reached that point. People in difficult or abusive relationships need time to develop emotionally, financially, and mentally before they can leave. It's not as simple as just walking out the door. But honestly, Kody doesn't care about Meri anymore, and it's so obvious. She, on the other hand, still does. She was the first wife, the original. She believed, like many others do in relationships like theirs, that her place was secure because of her history with Kody. She thought he would always love her more than anyone else, that he'd be forever grateful for her, for the other wives, for their many children. Then, Kody found someone he loved more, or maybe he never really loved Meri at all. Meri was, unfortunately, delusional. She didn't really leave Kody. He made the final call, deciding they would separate. If he had let her, she probably would have stayed in that miserable, self-imposed exile forever. In many ways, Meri is the perfect example of religious brainwashing. Add in her disastrous attempt to leave, followed by her desperate attempts to atone for that by crawling through emotional and metaphorical fire, and you've got the Meri we saw in the aftermath of the catfish scandal. Meri's attachment to her mother, a devout and zealous believer, played a huge role in her staying in the mess that was her marriage. Her mother, who was also a huge Kody fan, thought he could do no wrong. That kind of influence is powerful, especially in the world of fundamentalist polygamy, where it's hard to break free from long-standing beliefs and expectations. Kody's transformation over the years is honestly unsettling. I started watching Sister Wives this season after skipping about 10 seasons, and it felt like whiplash seeing the difference in him. The guy I saw on screen was a far cry from the laid-back, fun-loving, easygoing dad people used to rave about. I mean, the way he was behaving was downright disturbing, paranoid, angry, and hypersensitive. I couldn't wrap my head around what had happened to him, and it left me feeling confused. But then I dove deep into seasons 6 through 16, and it became clear this wasn't a sudden shift. His rage and paranoia had been building for years. So, here's the big question. Has Kody always been this way, and the family just covered for him? Or has he genuinely changed? After binge-watching from the start, I have to say I completely agree. Kody has definitely changed. Back in the early years, he was easygoing, fun, and a dad who genuinely seemed like he cared. Christine and Janelle would regularly praise him for being such a great father. It's almost laughable now, considering the state of things today. And let's talk about Robyn. I mean, it's not a stretch to say that catering to her every whim has taken its toll on him. We all know he's narcissistic, so he'll never take the blame for the mess with his kids. But honestly, wouldn't it be nice if he could at least acknowledge that Robyn's part in this chaos? It's like watching someone walk off a cliff while wearing blinders. Christine had a point too. They did say he was a great father, but when the reality set in, it was clear he couldn't even be bothered to tuck his own kids into bed while Christine was at work. That's when they were all under one roof, and it would have taken maybe half an hour. It was his responsibility, and he flat out refused. So, no, the whole great dad narrative, completely fabricated. Another factor, his kids grew up. They weren't starstruck by him anymore, and they could see the way he treated their mothers compared to how he treated Robyn. That had to mess with his head. It's one thing when your kids look up to you, but when they start questioning your actions, ouch. I've also thrown around the idea that maybe Kody started taking steroids, which could explain some of his aggression. And of course, Robyn's influence has only poisoned things further. The result? A man who's lost his grip on everything he once had. Here's my theory. In the early years, Kody was able to maintain the facade of the chill surfer dude because the OG wives were working overtime to prop him up. They let him believe he was the king of the jungle, always smoothing things over and never challenging him. But then Robyn entered the picture and started systematically undermining their relationships with him, sliding into the role of primary wife while separating her kids from the rest of the family. This fractured the whole dynamic, and it was downhill from there. Then came Kody, and what did Robyn do? She convinced Kody that the rest of the family was a threat to her and her precious little piss babies. So, he cut them off, his entire OG family, for 2 years, and not once did he send a factual their way. That was the tipping point. Fast forward, and Kody's waking up to the harsh reality. He's lost everything that made him feel important. The power, the respect, the control, it was all an illusion. His entire sense of self was built on a fantasy created by the original wives, and they're done now. The facade has crumbled, and Kody's left with nothing but his rage and confusion. As Shakespeare said, "Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned." Kody has scorned 3 of his 4 wives, and now he's reaping the consequences of his own mistakes. Too bad it took him this long to realize the fallout. Personally, I've never liked him. Watching the early seasons, I always thought he was fake and even cruel. And don't get me started on that time he wrote in his book about being disgusted by Christine eating. Who does that? What kind of person says something like that about their spouse? So now, while this behavior is more extreme, I'm not surprised. The mask has slipped, and the mean, insincere, two-faced guy was always there. The only difference now is that the mask is mostly gone, and the face underneath isn't kind. And yes, I do think Robyn's constant yes man role has played a huge part in his downfall. He's been stoked on ego fuel for years. On top of that, there's talk about Kody taking testosterone, which can definitely increase aggression. So it's a combination of all these factors coming together to create the man we see today. I'm really curious to see what others think about this, but from where I'm standing, it's clear Kody's not the man he once pretended to be. The backlash against Kody admitting he was never truly in love with any of the OG 3 wives, except Robyn, is something else. The community is up in arms about the upcoming tell-all clip, where he basically says, "Yeah, I wasn't in love with them, but I totally am with Robyn." As a longtime viewer, though, I feel like this is exactly what we've been waiting 18 seasons to hear. For years, Kody vehemently denied Robyn was his favorite, even up until last season. He'd practically gaslight us by acting like he didn't fall head over heels for her. So now, when he finally admits the truth, people are flipping out, accusing him of lying or saying it just to hurt the OG 3. Really? Isn't this the truth we've all suspected? Let's get real. Kody married 3 women he barely knew, under 6 months, anyone because they all asked to join his family when he was the new, hot thing in town. He clearly didn't love them at the time. He didn't even know them. Do I think Kody eventually loved them the way you might grow fond of your college roommate, even if you wouldn't have picked them as your best friend? Sure, I bet they had their moments. But there's a huge difference between loving someone and being in love with them. Kody's just now coming to terms with that distinction. The person who's going to hate hearing this the most. Robyn. By admitting he was only ever in love with her, Kody's pretty much admitting she wrecked the family. It's like he's dropping a nuclear bomb on her sophist where she's convinced the other wives just didn't try hard enough. Frankly, I'm loving this moment. But I also think he's lying, kind of. Kody's all about his image, his ego. If he were a decent guy, he could have easily said, "I loved them back then, but I didn't really know what love was. I met Robyn, and she helped me understand what real love is." But no. Instead, he's going with the "I never loved them" narrative, which is just his way of saying, Well, I saved them all. Even though I wasn't in love, I was still good to them, and this is how they repay me. It reminds me of that Beatles lyric, "Do you believe in love at first sight?" And the response, "Yeah, I'm certain it happens all the time." Kody's probably just a lusty 20-something who was trying to impress his dad and the fans in his new religion. The church gave him the perfect excuse to have all the wives he wanted, and unfortunately, he dragged 3 women through hell while figuring out how to love women he didn't even like. He made them compete for his affection like they were pawns in his own twisted game. Kody even said in the last episode something like, "Janelle and Christine never liked each other when we were married. They just complain about each other, and now they're getting along since they left me, like I'm the problem." Well, newsflash, buddy, you are the problem. You've always been the problem. Let's be clear here, I don't think Kody has the emotional capacity for real love, including with Robyn. He might have been infatuated with her, but they're both just enabling each other at this point. They're codependent. But he did seem to have some kind of affection, attraction, and playfulness with all his wives at some point. It's just that he's toxic. He loves playing mind games, triangulating everyone in his life, and making everyone compete for his favor. Robyn's the last wife standing, and I'll bet you anything, if the show lasts long enough, he's going to treat her the same way he did the OG3. He'll make her feel special at first, then tear her down when he gets bored. If I had to guess, he'd eventually say something like, "I never should have married a divorced mom who didn't really understand polygamy." Robyn said she wanted to grow old with her sister wives, but she pushed everyone away, even my kids. The sad thing. This time, he'd probably be right. I'm glad he's finally speaking the truth, but it's disappointing that he won't go on camera with each of these women individually and just say, "I'm sorry. I was misled by my faith. I was naive, and I didn't love you the way you deserved. But we built something beautiful together, and I see you all searching for your happiness the way I found mine. Can you forgive me? Can we appreciate what we created?" Instead, he's making his kids kiss Robyn's ring and blaming everyone else for his own failures. Typical Kody. Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in the next video. Take care and much love to you all.